All right. Welcome to episode 25 of the Tangled Rights podcast.
We can rent a car.
I am one of your hosts, Justin W. Wilson, Esquire. This is
Shane D. Cox, Esquire, licensed in the state of Nevada.
and Kansas as well, and Nevada. None of this is legal advice. It's not intended to be legal advice. If you have a special case question in the state of Kansas or Nevada, call us. If not, call your attorney. At some point during our podcast, I may get a phone call and have to leave. I've been in a 3-week jury trial that just got submitted to the jury yesterday. Pretty serious case. We'll talk about it later. But if Shane gets to finish, which by himself, some of you would probably prefer because apparently I talk too much to whoever you are. Okay, I didn't know I was supposed to not ask questions. I'm going to try that today. We'll see what happens. Watch how boring this shit is.
No, don't white knight for me. I can do it myself. Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to mansplain real quick.
I'm a big boy. Yeah, will you take over, please?
Yeah, here. I am older than you, right?
Yes.
All right. I'm an ageist. What is it?
Sure.
No, able. No, we're both disabled. So says our prior boss. Remember that?
Yes. So if Justin pieces out, it's because
It's because I'm doing justice
there's things going on. So
in the 8th Judicial District in the state of Nevada.
yes.
Shout out Carrie Maxey, Marco Luna, our office staff, Anya Sanko. There were a bunch of people that showed up yesterday for closing arguments, and it meant a lot that when I called them, they answered.
Yep.
I texted them all individually about that, but I'm going to say it publicly. It was a real good showing, and I appreciate the support.
Yes. So criminal trials are an important bastion of justice here in our society.
Yes.
Very important. And we have a few that we want to talk about. We've alluded to one for a long time, Sarah Boone. You've been so busy. Sarah Boone's the one whose boyfriend was in the suitcase.
Suitcase girl, okay. I don't remember things by name. I remember it by fact. So like with all of our cases, when we talk about him, he can say their name and I don't know. But if he says, oh, it's the case about this, got it.
All right, good excuse. So the suitcase murder case, the suitcase murder that happened in Florida, we've been waiting for this for years. This has been since 2020, and sometimes trials take a long time to get to the finish line. Hers was in part because she's on her 9th attorney, and this 9th attorney took it to trial. He did it. It went to trial. A lot of us watching this could tell Sarah Boone only cared about Sarah Boone. So we see a lot, as I've always said, a lot of the commentators online just want to see people convicted and get what's coming to them. And sometimes what you see in the public eye is a limited view of what the evidence is. And we'll have another case where we talk about that more in depth. So in Sarah's case, she took the stand, and we never know what the conversation is like with the attorney about taking the stand. It is the defendant's decision. It's always the defendant's decision to take the stand or not, but they do it with the advice of counsel. But the judge does even canvass or ask questions of the criminal defendant to see if they want to testify or if they're going to waive. So any right you give up kind of during the process, whether it's the speedy trial right, every jurisdiction I've seen, they want to ask the actual criminal defendant if they're waiving the right or not. Justin, feel free to talk. You're being weird now.
No, I'm just listening. So he's right. I refer to it as an admonition because they're not telling them they can't testify. They're just explaining to them that they have the right, that it's their decision to make, and that happened in our trial. Same thing. When the state closes their case in chief, she or he, the judge, whomever, or they, whatever, are going to talk to the defendant, say, hey, they read it's like an instruction, and then they ask them, basically, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Do you want to take the stand or not? And then the defendant will have spoken to their counsel prior to that, and they're going to make that decision.
Let's give an overview of trial. I don't know if we've done that here
Like
before.
how it works?
How it works. So
Okay.
You get to the trial date. There's a jury or there's not a jury. That's another thing you can waive. You can have a non-jury trial. You can have in front of the judge if you want.
What's that called?
It's bench trial is what we usually call them here. I don't know if they call them different in different jurisdictions, but have you always heard them called bench trial? Maybe that's just what it is everywhere then. I never want to speak for everyone because there's sometimes comments saying, that's not what we call it here. So we call them bench trials or jury trials, or you can call it jury trial or non-jury trial. I guess could be another way to phrase it. So
There's more than one way.
There is. So you select a jury. We've talked about voir dire a little bit and how you select a jury. That's the very first part, and that can take a long time in like sexual assault cases. Those are very, very touchy subjects and very personal. And if you pick a jury in those cases, you see that a lot of people know people who have been affected by that. Okay, so that's going to take a while. You don't even get to the meat of things, until a few days of selecting this jury. So you pick the jury, the jurors or potential jurors are asked questions. That takes a while. And then the first thing that happens in the case is opening statements. Sometimes you'll hear people call them opening arguments. They're not supposed to be opening arguments. They're supposed to be opening statements. There's supposed to be no argument from the attorney about what they believe about the facts. It should be just what the facts are, viewed in the light of both sides. So the prosecution might point out, hey, these facts show that, yes, this crime was committed. And then the defense would be, what about this fact? This fact is what we'll show. So it's supposed to be opening statements, and that's it, okay? And then the plaintiff or prosecution gets to go first and present evidence and witnesses. And usually presenting evidence through witnesses, that's a little complicated. So the prosecution brings all of their witnesses, and they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So they have a high burden, so they usually bring most, if not all of the witnesses are brought by the prosecution. So in Justin's recent trial, it's, a dozen maybe, approximately 10 to 12 witnesses from the prosecution, something like that, right?
Something like that. It was several. They didn't call everybody that had noticed. So that's the other thing and it's easy to glaze over. I'm not talking crap on this. Before the trial, in a criminal case,
there's a list.
There's a list of evidence or a list of witnesses that's going to get sent out. That says, hey, this is the witnesses that the state has. And the defense will sometimes have to do that as well. Say, hey, this is our witness list. The state usually requests for reciprocal discovery and all that stuff. And there's a statute in Nevada on that. And they can call from that list. Now, theoretically, something could happen at trial where they could call a person not on the list, but that's only for impeachment purposes.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's if something comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody says something crazy, then you can call a different one to rebut that. But yeah, so I think it was like 7 to 10, if memory serves. It was several cops, but they didn't call all the cops. Like if there was two officers interviewing, they called one of the two.
Sure.
And we did a stipulation to make it to where one could talk about what the other did, just for ease, because this trial lasted 10 days.
Yeah.
10 trial days, not like 10 calendar days. It was a 3-week trial.
And so we're just trying to set up this testimony part of it is there's a ton of witnesses, and the prosecution cannot call a criminal defendant in their case in chief unless it's agreed to. And I've never heard of that agreed to. I'm sure it could happen, but the criminal defendant's Fifth Amendment right to not testify against themselves is preserved at least until the defendant's case. So the prosecution brings all of its witnesses, puts on all of its evidence and testimony that they want to present in their case, and then it passes over to the defense. And then the defense can decide if they're calling their witness or not. So in the grand scheme of things, it's usually at the end, if the defendant's going to testify, where it's like, we're all kind of waiting for this big moment of what the defendant's going to say. So the prosecution does have a chance to bring more evidence after the defense rests, but that's how the case goes. And then closing arguments, and you can make arguments then. That's the first time that both attorneys are allowed to say anything argumentative. So that is, this evidence shows that they were untruthful, during all the questioning, you can object and say that that's argumentative, and potentially that question won't be asked of a witness. So arguments are only reserved for the very end of the case, right before you submit it to the jury, and then the jury goes to deliberation, and they're not to be influenced anymore by the attorneys. Just look at the evidence that's been submitted to you, your memory of the testimony, and sometimes they ask juror questions. Maybe you've seen that, but it's just a waiting game, and that's exactly where we are right now, is in that waiting game. But circling back to the Sarah Boone case, I just wanted to highlight, we were waiting for this Sarah Boone testimony for a long time. The prosecution brings all of its witnesses, and Sarah Boone elects to testify, and she elects to wait until the defense's case in chief. And the crazy thing about this Sarah Boone case, everyone thought all this time, man, this is not consistent. She seems so self-absorbed. She seems like she's not telling the truth. And then she finally testifies, and she doesn't look any better. The whole time, everything the public sees about her, whining about getting snacks at trial, or whining about not getting the proper evidence, or whining about her attorneys not properly, bringing her case forward. All these things come out, and you see her testify, and she looks exactly like a short-haired Karen who wants to talk to your manager. And yeah, I'm just saying that's what she looked like. So
Does she have the bob?
She does have short hair. It's not quite bobby, but it is short hair.
That's sad.
Yeah. So she looks exactly. It's interesting. So
what you're saying is that her physical appearance mirrors her actions, or
Yes.
how her personality appears, because obviously you don't know her, but based on what
you can
saw.
infer what you believe about a person.
Okay, yeah, it's short. Yeah.
That's exactly what she.
Why is she making that poo-poo face?
She's always making.
Dude.
She was always making those kind of faces.
I make a
during this
poo-poo
case.
face if I don't have snacks.
Yeah.
I do be loving snacks. You give me a Del Monte Mandarin Orange Cup, no sugar added, and a cheese stick, Frigo or whatever it's called, the mozzarella. Shoo!
There you go. She didn't have her snacks. So a few interesting points about this trial. I think everybody knows she was found guilty, and by a jury of her peers that did not take a very long time to deliberate on her case, because she didn't have a really good reason as to why she left her boyfriend at the time in that suitcase. She flip-flopped her story a few times, talking to police that, he went in there by himself, and then also saying, no, I put him in there because I was scared of him, because they brought this, battered spouse defense of sorts. One thing that we live in Las Vegas, which we have a high Hispanic population here, and during the trial, because her boyfriend is Hispanic, and his name was what I would say is Jorge Torres Jr., but the entire trial they called him George. And I was super confused on if this was a specific to Tampa, or Orlando area kind of thing, that they just don't deal with the Hispanic names as well, or if he's so Americanized, he has the name Jorge, but he's just been called George his whole life. So I thought that was incredibly interesting. I don't have any reason why I'm talking about that, except names matter, and sometimes that becomes a big part of a trial. In our recent trial, about how to pronounce a name was a big part of it for some reason.
Well, I mean, it's with any kindness or courtesy that you're showing somebody. If you're talking to them and you don't know how to pronounce it, that's fine, and they correct you one or two times. But
he was not with us to tell us how to pronounce his name. Only
sure,
Sarah,
so we don't know. But how many times in a 10-day trial do you have to get told by everybody that, hey, that's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced like this. It's kind of like those people that say Nevada.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Alyssa, it's Nevada, right? And then you can talk to them for 5 years, random phone calls, and they say Nevada, and you're like, no, it's Nevada, dude.
We talked about the Rob Tellis thing, because I'm obsessed with him, remember? And his name was Tellis,
Not Tejas. You guys just need to kiss.
Tejas, we're going to.
Where?
He hasn't been transported yet.
So you're gonna kiss him?
So we're gonna go to jail right after, and
You're
see if
gonna
he'll-
walk in there with some orange
if he'll
Kool-Aid
accept my
in
visit.
the packet, and you're gonna go, put this on your lips and kiss me on my hot mouth.
Yes, that's the plan.
You've seen that video, right?
I want to be his appellate attorney, please.
Film it. We'll follow it.
No, I want a GoPro. I want POV.
Oh, okay. Just got that GoPro. So another thing I wanted to highlight is, Justin, look up the prosecutor's tie during closing arguments in the Sarah Boone trial. I think that there should be decorum in the court, and everybody's making fun of me for my orange suit. Look at this dude's hideous tie. Why would you be wearing that during a closing argument at the most pinnacle moment? It is super
So I
important.
pulled up the full close. I need to move it.
We're gonna put it up on. The, I
it's
don't know
what-
if you'd see it, but
So if this is the prosecutor, he's like a clean cut looking guy, pretty big.
a bigger dude.
He looks like he's fit. What is it? Like it's a barber pole, like green and white.
No, you're not looking at the right one. Then we'll have to show you later.
Is this not it?
No, it must have been the reclose.
All right. Hold on. Let me go to reclose. Well, that's the full closing argument. That should be the whole thing.
Okay, go to the very end then.
All right. Yeah, I'll click it back. Let me see. Just bring it over here, dude. What do we got here? Is it like a Van Gogh or something? What is that?
I don't know. I couldn't stop looking
it's
at
cartoon characters, dude. That's
It's
not
like-
a Van Gogh. Hold on. I'm going to see if this has got it. 'cause
it. It's
this is
real
ridiculous.
cartoony.
No, for sure.
Would you ever wear that in a trial?
No,
Would you ever wear that to court?
absolutely not.
It looks horrible. We're fashion police now after I wear this orange suit. So
Dude, the orange suit was part of a bet. It was
I
funny.
understand, but hey, I've had a lot of people talk crap on me after this.
Who did?
So. The random online commenters, will you get them for me?
No, I'm not even allowed to talk.
I know.
How am I supposed to be allowed to get them?
So
Yeah, this is dumb. Not my style. What county is it in?
this is Orlando area.
That's even weirder.
Yeah,
like
this
this
is
seems
a
like something
normal
you'd see in like
small town.
a small town kind of thing
Yeah.
where no one cares. But in Orlando, in a proper city,
I wouldn't do anything to distract the jury from possibly,
No.
returning a guilty verdict. So
so it's one of those things that's kind of like an intangible that you can't really nail down. It's difficult, but if anybody remembers the documentary about O.J. Simpson, right? Well, one of the things that actually did happen in that trial, and they properly documented it in the documentary, was the female prosecutor, I forget her name, changed her hair mid-trial because everybody was talking about her because she was on national news. And so it was in all the headlines about her haircut, and she I don't remember what she did. She permed it or something. And then that became what the focus was, and the jurors were looking at it, and it's like there's every single thing that you do is scrutinized. Like to the point that when I'm sitting there, I make sure that my body language is open. I try not to tap my fingers when I'm nervous or anything. I try to just sit. I tell my client, like yesterday during closing arguments, he was for the state, he was kind of crinkling his forehead, and I very calmly look over at him and I smile, and I'm like, make your face neutral right now. And then he lined his face out, and I was like, exactly. And we're back, and we're calm. Because we don't care.
because some of those things could possibly make the difference. We don't know, but let's
When you talk to
do-
jurors after a trial, which I will do
They
a
mention
debrief,
those.
You ask them. I'm like, the questions I ask them. I'm like, look, I'm not
He didn't look sorry.
criticizing anything that you're going to tell me. I look at every jury trial, whether it's a win, haven't had a loss yet, or a loss, but I say that as a learning experience.
You tell them that you haven't had a loss yet.
No, I don't say that. I don't say that. I tell them, look, I look at every jury trial, win or loss, as a way to make myself better, both as an advocate and an attorney. How do I present myself? Did I do anything that was annoying? Was there any mannerism that I had?
How much time do you have?
Sure.
Sir.
It's that kind of stuff. And then I also ask him about my client. I was like, was there anything he did that stood out? Did the state do anything that stood out to you? Did anything the court staff do stood out that you were fixing your focus on? That way I can try to control the things that you can't control or you didn't know you needed to control.
Right.
And it's just like everybody's different, but as soon as you get the whole list in your head, maybe it'll make you better. And then the next time, the result will be what you want it to be. Or, for me,
Don't wear ugly ties.
don't.
That
Don't do anything weird.
was an ugly tie, though. All right.
Depends. If it was like Rick and Morty, that's kind of cool, but I wouldn't wear a Rick and Morty tie to court.
Sarah Boone behind bars, going to be there, has been there. Fought with a lot of attorneys who probably told her that she should take a deal, and she said no.
What's the range on this?
So she got a second-degree murder. I
look
think
it
it
up.
was 20 some odd plus, and supposedly they were offering her somewhere in the teens. So it was a difference of a substantial amount of years. Like, but they wanted to offer her basically the whole thing because they thought they could get her, which they did.
like offered her like pleading straight up kind of thing, but just stipulated sentence.
Yes. Yep. That was my understanding.
This is saying second degree murder penalties. It can be up to 30 years.
Okay. Sentencing will happen
Sure.
soon.
30 years is a long time.
That is a long time. She's in her 40s. So
That's it.
a lot came out on this trial. They said that there was a history of fighting. One of the neighbors said he would avoid being in the area. They were kind of had alcoholic issues together between them. They were both drunk at the time. But what came out kind of initially was him pleading for his life in that suitcase. And I think,
because the video.
yeah. And it's just insane because then
Did
they brought the actual suitcase to the trial.
I saw that when the prosecutor picked it up and put it down.
Laid it on the ground to show how small it was. This guy was a pretty small guy. He was pretty close to 5 foot, like 120 pounds, something like that. He was not a big guy. So he fit in that suitcase. I don't think I would.
Why would he get in there though?
So that was the whole debate, and only Sarah or an inebriated version of herself and him really know.
What'd she say?
She said that they were playing around, seeing if he could fit in there. Well, she said that once, and then she also said that they were playing hide and seek, and he hid in there, which he couldn't get in there himself and zip it up. So people think that she was trying to kind of punish him because they had a history of domestic violence, and sometimes, hey, do this to show me that you really love me. Possibly, I don't know what's going on in their relationship.
Just break up.
And every relationship that gets to that level of domestic battery,
Shouldn't they just break up?
Yeah, ask the single guy. Break up? Yes.
No, but in that situation, shouldn't they just break up?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Thank
you. Random stranger.
For everybody's edification, we have a visitor today who's watching us.
We have a listener. If you give us gifts, you are allowed to watch us record.
That is not true. That is not true.
That's not legal. This isn't for legal services.
I'm just saying that's not true because who knows if someone's going to send us a gift and then ask them to watch this. I'm not doing that if I don't know him. This is our friend who happens to be with us today. He doesn't want to be on the podcast. I offered him a spot to walk in and say hello, but he didn't want to do that. But I did tell him.
He or she.
Yeah, or they. I did tell him he was going to have to say something, and he just did. He's shaking his head at me. What, you mad, bro? Come on.
So
Anyway.
break up.
Break up.
Don't do that.
Don't domestic violence each other.
Okay, I want to talk about another insane case that's been in the news because they're all insane, right? All murders are insane. This is out of Delphi, Indiana. People are just calling them the Delphi murders because
Is it
the
spelled
town.
Delphi, Delphi?
Yes. Have you seen this a little bit?
No.
So the trial is
It's phonetic, right? Like Delphi. But
So-
obviously Midwesterners will. Oh shit! Sorry, I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
this is Midwestern, and you'll
Not you, the
appreciate why.
Guy on
So Delphi, Indiana, is a town of about 3,000 people. I think I saw. If I'm wrong about that number, so sorry. That's my high school had 3,000 people. Your high school had less. My high school had about 3,000 people.
My entire county
When I
had
was there.
3,300 people.
So this is small. So this case is not getting tried in that county. It got pushed out to Fort Wayne, about an hour away. So today's hats are from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I bought this just insane one that looks like the Indiana basketball, football. They wear these red and white stripes with a pork tenderloin on it, which is a huge piece of fried pork on a sandwich with the Indiana state flag on it. That might be the craziest hat I've ever bought. Hang on. Let me do the hats and then we'll talk. And this one, which is like the Hispanic Fort Wayne version of a fighting apple, like wrestling. I'll call on you.
I looked up the population for your edification. It's 2,961 as of 2020.
Is that close enough to 3,000 for me to estimate 3,000?
But if we're doing Price is Right rules, you went over, so you're
That
a
was
loser.
2020, but it's 2024 now. There's had to have been some bursts. So 2 teenage girls were found by a bridge in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of just forest town out here in Indiana, not a big town, kind of. And they were found mutilated and throats slashed and just completely murdered. So for a few years, they were searching. They were on the hunt, trying to find the murderer who might have done this in the small town of 3,000. And then for some reason, after a couple years, there was a clerk who picked up, documents kind of looking at this case again and saw a report of somebody who reported that they were in the area. So a clerk looked at this and said, hey, this man said that he was in the area, of these murders on the day of the murders.
For what?
He was just in the area. It was kind of a hiking trail too. They were just kind of in the area. So they took a second look at it. They looked into the guy, and then they ended up charging him with the murders. No DNA evidence, no physical evidence, but they felt it was strong enough to hold him. So I went back and I talked a little bit about sometimes we only see like a small piece of what the evidence is until the trial. The trial's public, and then everything comes out, or at least most things come out. There's things that are limited and not admissible in the trial, but a much better picture comes out. So what was in the news is there were videos, body-worn camera footage of how these bodies were found. And the mothers of these two victims, two young teenage girls, are in there watching the videos and just come out crying. I might throw up, if it were me watching this. So that was kind of the first big news that came out of this trial. And I kept trying to dig into this, like, why this guy? Why do we think he did it? Just because he was in the area doesn't mean it was him. So in these last couple days, it came out now that while he was in jail, he was put on psych watch and he was talking to a psychiatrist, and he admitted to the jail psychiatrist that he committed the murders. And he also admitted to another person saying, my wife has nothing to do with this. I did this. And it was just my sexual lust and my sex addiction that caused me to do this. So another part of it came out where the girls had their phone and had a video of a guy kind of following them that they kind of looked at, but you couldn't get a good look at him.
Yeah.
So they were saying it looked enough like this guy. It did not look like, the guy on trial. It could have been him. In a small town of 3,000, you should be able to match up only 10 guys that,
That a certain physical description.
that fit this middle-aged male, kind of look with facial hair.
You
at the
said
time.
you'd throw up. I feel like I might end up going Gary Plauché on him.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's why
You don't get that reference?
I know exactly that reference.
Plauche.
Yeah. If you guys want to look that up, that's an insane case. You know it now that yeah. So the facts, but not the names, right? On camera.
Dude.
Justifiable.
It was. That's what the. So
they gave him manslaughter in there, right? He got probation?
he got probation. Yeah, he didn't get any time. Tell us what happened in that one, Justin, since you brought it up.
In the Plauché case?
Yes.
So a dude had raped his son.
Is this from Oklahoma or something?
I'm not. No, it's Louisiana is where the guy.
And they took him to like California or something, right?
Yeah. So he was going through an airport, and they were walking past a phone bank. And this obviously happened a long time ago, but it was in '84, and so he had like a mask.
He had taken his son, set up what had happened in the underlying crime, I guess, a little bit better before the extradition.
I mean, it's just a very brutal series of.
He stole the child.
Yeah, stole him.
He stole the child. Series of sexual
for a long time.
A period of time, murdered and mutilated this man's son.
Yeah, but starts out with the sex stuff, goes to the murder.
Yes.
And then they're extraditing him back. And so Gary, the dad, is waiting at a phone bank, and there's it just so happens there's cameras, and his back is to him, and it looks like just some dude is in the background. And then as soon as they're walking him through, he turns around and bow.
Shoots him right in the head.
Little snub nose right in the head.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that vigilante justice, which is what that is not right. But I have a son.
Yeah.
Touch my son, find out what happens.
Yeah. an interesting part of that one too. We didn't even prep this. Look at this. We're so organic. So they tried to go after the wife too, and they were kind of looking into her, and he's like, nope, she had nothing to do with it. And the wife even said, I am mad at him that he didn't even let me drive him there, because she wanted justice, this vigilante justice to get him back. So he said, I planned it myself. And he came with kind of a temporary psychosis, defense.
It's basically like a heat of passion thing.
Yeah. And
Sure.
I mean, we talked last week about that town bully that got shot, in a group, and nobody. So this is just direct trial by.
And there's another
public
one
here.
that I thought of while I was talking about that. Her name is Marianne Bachmeier, German lady. Man was on trial for the rape and murder of her daughter, walks into the courtroom and shoots him in court. Yeah. Killed him.
Yeah.
Another one where same kind of thing. Something bad happened. It was in West Germany, but obviously this is a long time ago. They didn't have the security that we have now. Wouldn't be able to happen that way now.
Yeah. So
Again, not that it's good.
no, it's not. And
Just
but-
I've talked about this a lot. Like there are certain crimes I can understand, right? Everybody's been mad enough to punch somebody. People have been hungry enough to want to grab an apple and eat it, whatever. Once you have a child, I think you understand. Like I remember the first time that my son looked at me,
Yeah.
like that feeling. And then when I think about, and I have a weird brain. I don't know why. Like there are times that I'll be sitting on the couch playing with him, and I think about what I would do if he got hurt, or when I'm feeding him, like what I would do if he started choking, and it makes me like,
yeah. No, it's a parent thing.
parents, it's understandable.
And when it's very difficult, because when you're a parent of a victim, you want to point at anyone, right? And sometimes, and that, I guess that's the point I was getting to as I'm watching this trial. I'm trying to think why this guy, but it came out eventually.
Right.
There's some defense to it that's saying, he was kind of trapped and he was kind of induced into admitting to this. That's what the defense is going
Sure.
for still.
Right.
That he does have kind of psychiatric issues, and that's why he admitted to it even. And he was scared about his wife potentially, so that's why he even made that statement. It was me, not my wife, even though nobody was pointing the finger at his wife either. So this is kind of an interesting one. I want to add on to your point you were just making about vigilante justice, because I made a note about Courtroom Outbursts, and I'm going to ask Austin to not forget to put up this video of Deshaun Brown and Nyla Lattimore. It's biological father of a child who was harmed by kind of a stepfather, mother's boyfriend figure, and he attacks him in the courtroom. It's nothing out of the ordinary to see somebody kind of.
I think I've seen this one.
He jumps over,
Yeah.
and he attacks. He doesn't
get very far.
He
but
doesn't get
gets
very
a couple
far.
good shots.
Gets a couple punches in.
Base, can we get back up in 560 now?
Chill out, dude. Taking it.
But these are the kind of passions that we see in criminal court that makes it so much more serious than civil court, even though sometimes family law, man, they can get to yelling and throwing punches too.
I
But
can yell at you too.
yeah, they can yell at the attorney because it's always the attorney's fault.
Yeah. How dare you?
So that's another thing we see. So as to these Delphi murders, we're still paying attention to what's going on, and we're going to debrief them a little more. They are about wrapping up here, but I just think the jury might, see somebody admitting as enough. So a very, very sad situation, and criminally or in the case, there's not much to comment on, but it's just wait to see what happens in the trial before making your public opinion. Sometimes let's hear all of the evidence, and sometimes we just see headlines that are not all of the evidence. So trust the jurors because they are there. They're hearing everything. They're sitting there for days. For days.
They are staying there for days, but they don't always hear everything.
They don't always hear everything, but they're hearing way more than the public does. So we'll see what happens with that case. Let's move on to another criminal trial where we got news just yesterday. Remember YSL, Young Thug?
Mm-hmm.
He took a deal. Did you hear this?
No.
You've been busy. So this trial has been going on for over 2 years. We talked about the attorney being held in contempt for questioning why there's, a one-sided ex parte communication on the other side. So this case got transferred to another judge. So Young Thug took a non-negotiated plea deal, okay? Took a non-negotiated plea deal. Justin, tell me what a non-negotiated plea deal, and then I'll tell you about what happens. You tell me what a non-negotiated plea deal is first.
You tell me.
Non-negotiated plea deal is a plea deal where you plead guilty, but you don't negotiate or agree to the term of what that guilty plea actually means.
I've never done that. I thought that's what it was, but I've never even seen anybody do that.
In trial, yeah.
What?
Yes.
Was it to some really low charge?
I don't know what the so we deal with what the crime is a lot, and I don't know if people know this. You have to plead to an actual crime for there to be a punishment. You can't just say, all right,
I'm guilty.
let's just have
of
an agreement
crimes.
of how much time this is going to be. You have to plead to what crime it is, and that's important to the prosecution and the defense, because if you get another crime later, that's what's on your record, So sometimes when you're charged with a sex crime, they'll want you to have a sex crime on your record. Sometimes part of the negotiation is, don't give me a sex crime on my record, but I'll do more requirements or I'll have a higher punishment. Sometimes there's a trade-off between those that's really important. But nothing in the news I saw said what the actual plea deal was, and this is a complicated RICO charge, so could have just been general racketeering. And this guy's famous enough, he's not going to be able to hide behind this. And this is actually Young Thug. It's his case that he pled to. There's still some other co-defendants that are going to continue on. But Young Thug is by far the most famous person involved in this organization. He's the head of the organization. He is the richest one. He's been on this trial for 2 years, and he finally took a non-negotiated plea deal. Guess how much time the prosecution was asking for.
Can you tell me what the original charges were, or at least give me an overview?
Racketeering.
Racketeering.
So
And it's what state is it in?
this is in Georgia, Atlanta.
I'm going to say that they're asking for 8 years.
They asked for 25 years.
Holy crap.
Yep. They asked for 25 years and then an additional 20 years of probation.
What?
He's about our age. He's in his 30s. So the judge decided that he was only going to have probation, but a very, very long term of probation. And he gave a statement that I think we should just record and show all of our criminal defendants, where he took accountability. He said that the judge had changed his life, and made him want to come to an agreement on this. So he sucked up to the judge, right? And
Not always the best thing. Unless it's genuine.
he apologized for taking, this court's time, looked at the staff, thanked all the staff for their time that they've put into this case.
He talked to his attorney, and his attorney gave him some advice, and it sounds like he listened.
Yes.
At least with respect to his argument.
Yes. Yep. So this statement is, he was gracious. He pointed out some of the good things he had done because he's got a lot of money and he's donated back to communities. He's from this area, and he said he had been complicit in some things that he shouldn't have, and he wants to be better. He wants to change, and wants to just go on with his life. And if they catch him in anything else, he's going to be right back. So going out on probation isn't like a free pass. You're kind of restricting, some of your rights, search and seizure rights, Fourth Amendment rights.
They can look at your stuff anytime, any place, anywhere.
So they can look into you a lot more. So he's going to have that over his head, but this is what he's agreed to. So this is a long time coming. He was asked to be released, that day. He's been in custody this whole time. He was asked to be released, and he was. So, yeah.
That's good.
Because he got probation. So,
Well, yeah, as soon as you get probation, you get.
he got probation.
How long is he on probation for?
I think it was something like 8 to 10 years. It was a really long probation time. But I also think Young Thug's obviously somebody famous, and he got to where he is by being talented and skilled and good businessman. So
Yeah. He's not a dummy.
the fact that he was well-spoken shouldn't be a surprise, I guess, to me. But he's been silent, throughout this whole trial. Like I said, the prosecution's been bringing evidence for 2 years, witnesses and had issues that popped up, and they've taken breaks for a little amount of time throughout this case. So this has been hanging over his head for a long time.
Sure.
And it finally, comes to some sort of agreement. So I think that was very interesting.
Well, good for him that he got probation. He got out of jail.
I wanted to mention, I posted this on Instagram, but we got a case dismissed this week that we both did work on.
We did.
So, Justin, you want to dive into that a little bit?
How would you like me to tell it? You want me to tell what happened and then what we had to do to get it resolved?
Yeah, the accusations, what
So-
our client was accused of.
Our client was accused of possession of personal identification or document of another, which what that means is you have their personal information, date of birth, and the statute is written incredibly broadly.
Sometimes laws
Date of birth,
are written where what did we say one time, that an average person commits 3 to 4 felonies a day?
yeah, this is one where you could easily commit a felony. Like, it's not good because if I had a piece of paper with Austin's name on it, that could be it. Oh, wait.
Well,
Let me back up. It's not just one. The statute says that if there's 5 documents, that it's presumed that that's what you're trying to do. And the way the statute's written is that there's the last element is that it's with the intent to defraud, right? So our guy just gets off work. He works at a hospital here in town. He's in his scrubs and he's got his name badge on. He's an EKG tech. And at his hospital, there's certain codes that are all hands on deck. What that means is somebody will come in with like a stroke or some kind of trauma, and then everybody kind of has to go there to make sure that if anything is needed with their particular specialty, they can assist. So while he was doing his regular EKGs or EKGs for people who maybe weren't in such an emergent situation, something happens and he stuffs the paperwork in his pocket. And what it had on it was patient numbers, dates of birth, and names. That's it. And when I say patient numbers, I mean the hospital patient number, not a social security number, not a driver's license number, nothing like that. And so he had just bought this car, and for some dumb reason, he didn't have his temporary registration on it. So they go to pull him over. It's a valid stop. However, in reviewing the body cam, I found out that while they're at the stoplight right behind him, before they even light him up, they're talking about, oh, something feels weird. My spidey senses are tingling. He's driving like a Charger in an area where drug deals happen at Flamingo and
near a hotel.
Near a hotel. I was like, get out of here, whatever.
Casino, yeah.
Anyway, so they turn, and you're turning into the left lane. It's a 3-lane road. They hit him with the lights. He goes to get over. It takes him a second because there's cars, so he gets over to park. And right as he's getting there, it's the turn in for the casino. There's no shoulder. Obviously, it's a better place. So he turns into the casino, goes through the roundabout to park, right? As soon as he pulls in, all the parking spots, like as far as you can see, are full. So he's, I'm assuming in his head, he's like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? So he rolls forward a little bit. And I'm talking like this interaction takes, I timed it out in my motion. It was like 5 seconds after they light him up, 10 seconds after he turns in, he fully stops. So we're not talking like a chase. And then they're like, we're getting him out of the car. Before he even all the way pulls in, like as he was pulling over and goes to turn into the casino, they're like, no, we're pulling him out of the car, which they don't have a reason to do that. They had probable cause to pull him over to deal with the traffic citation, but not to get him out of the car. They walk up. As they walk up, he says, what am I being pulled over for? And they say, get out. He gets out. They walk him to the back of the car. They point at the license plate that's missing, and then they go to turn him around to put him on their car because they're going to search him. And what he does is, as they turn him around, he turns to, hey, what are you doing? Why are you putting your hands on me? immediately to the ground, knee in his back. 5 officers show up, whole big thing. So I filed a motion to dismiss, suppress, ultimately dismiss, and the state did not respond. They just waited till the motion hearing date and dismissed. But the backstory is that the whole time we were trying to explain to them, hey, there was an independent review by his hospital board. He maintained his job. It was inadvertent, yada, yada, yada. I gave him all this information, like the report from the hospital, the HR lady's number. The HR lady wasn't super cooperative because since it was an HR issue, she wouldn't talk to the prosecutor a whole lot.
Sure.
And it just turned into an absolute crap show.
So one thing I want,
But it got dismissed.
It got dismissed. One thing I want to highlight is my grandma, and I know other grandmas that have a list of their grandkids' names and birthdays so that they can keep track. So if your grandma in the state of Nevada is carrying that list with them, she could get arrested for a felony and be pushed that far for every name she has, every date of birth is one count. So if she's got 20 grandkids, that's 20 felonies that she could be charged with. And the prosecution could carry it to preliminary hearing, pass it up,
Which they did in this case.
and scare you like they're going to go into trial, try and threaten your grandma to, take a gross misdemeanor, have probation, have a stay out of trouble order, take some classes, pay some money as a fine. So tell grandma, don't do that, grandma. You can't have the list of our birthdays to give us birthday presents.
What are you doing?
What if I have like my kid's insurance card? Am I?
No, if it's one, it's not a big deal. It's only presumed if there's 5 or more.
So 5 or more, and the statute says any personal identifying information, which includes birthdays.
They specifically say birthday, name. So the other thing is the way the statute's written, at least the way the prosecution was talking about it to me, if I wrote 10 dudes' names down, 10 dudes' names on a piece of paper and put it in my pocket, it's presumed that that's what I'm doing, which is dumb.
It's trying to protect against people stealing your information.
I understand.
Creating
I just
credit
think they
cards,
could-
but it doesn't matter if they're even, related to you.
I just
There's
think
no
that they could probably
distinction.
have written the statute a little better or maybe clean it up. With as many of these as I see, I'm sure it's gone up.
Or the prosecution should use their discretion better and not carry a case that they're just going to dismiss anyway.
Waste my time,
Yeah.
freak my client out, who I'm glad I was able to achieve a good result for him.
He had it hanging over his head for all these months because
I know he was
because
stressed,
the prosecutor.
but Jesus, dude.
Because the prosecution didn't have to prosecute this, right?
No, they didn't.
They have.
And I explained it to him. I was like, look, I see you got this. This is the charge, but here's what happened. Could you?
No was the answer for a long
No
time.
was the answer for a long time.
So we have to push it forward, and we have to do what we have to do. So, all right, we have a listener question here. We'll pass some of this other information till next week. Is it only beneficial for rich people to have a lawyer on standby at all times, or should I also have one on standby just in case anything happens? This is from Heather. Who's Heather?
My mom.
She asked you that question. Ask us.
To ask you guys. Yeah.
All right, Heather.
Wait, what's the question again? Sorry.
Is it only beneficial for rich people to have a lawyer on standby at all times, or should I also have one on standby just in case anything happens? What are you getting into, Heather?
So I'll give my take. Yeah, I think it completely depends. If you are not rich but you have a business, it might be a good idea to have somebody who could handle
Yes.
like random contract stuff if it pops up to where they've got a retainer hanging out there. That way you don't have to worry about signing up. It's for ease of access thing. But if it's just like you're just a regular person, just like have a DUI lawyer on staff, no.
Not
I
on
don't think
staff,
it's
no, but
necessary.
have their contact. I wouldn't have.
Yeah. You just need their contact info.
Yeah. So if you're getting in jail, if you're getting arrested, let's say like our client we were just talking about, he got taken in, right? He got arrested. You're going to have to wait the 1 or 2 days to get out, and you're going to have to post bail. Having a lawyer on call is not going to really change much there unless they're holding you for a really long time. But here in Las Vegas, they get you through unless it's something serious.
And even then, you get your first appearance pretty quick. So as long as you had a lawyer that you knew and your family could call for you, I've had this happen where that case we got knocked down. That was the possession of a firearm by a prohibited person
Sure.
for that guy that's a friend of a friend.
Okay.
They called me the day he gets arrested. The next morning, I'm in court for him on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, you do these kind of cases, right? Yep. Here's the kind of case. Will you take it? Yep. She's going to call you. And then the wife of him called me. And they're like, hey, what do you need? I told him. Where do I go? I went there. Got him out. Right? So you don't have to have the lawyer on staff to do that.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to know lawyers
To have somebody locked in from the beginning,
that you could call? Sure.
that helps.
Yeah, it's helpful, but I don't think it's necessary.
No. Yeah.
Especially because like a lot of times it seems like it's a waste of money. Like if I paid a retainer for a criminal lawyer, it would just be sitting there. It's just money that I'm not using. Or a wills and estates lawyer. I'm
Yeah.
not drafting a trust anytime soon.
And then if you're ever on body worn camera footage saying, "Oh, I'm going to call my lawyer," you look like a loser.
I don't think so. I think that there's a
My father's going to hear about this.
I'll sue you in England. There's a like a stigma with people like that. Like you said, Karen. It's those, I don't know what they are. They're like sovereign citizens or whatever. They're like, I'm not driving, I'm traveling.
I was in Henderson yesterday or 2 days ago, and there was a guy in Henderson. The marshal even sits outside and asks who you are to let you in there. Although it's public, they get to, kind of manage their
Corral,
courtroom
yeah,
and
yeah.
see what are you here to listen to, So he was asking, what case are you here for? And the guy says, well, for this one. He's like, are you John Smith? That's my given name. No. Are you John Smith? That's my given name. And he wouldn't give it up. And the marshal's just like rolling his eyes at him like,
Yeah.
but okay, you're saying you're him, right? I guess come on in,
Yeah.
So
They play semantic games and it's dumb. I love it when they start quoting maritime law. Like this isn't right under admiralty.
Admiralty
Or whatever,
That's a
it's
big
like-
one. If the flag has the fringe on it,
If it's upside down, we're in distress.
Yes.
I don't fucking know, dude.
Yeah.
Like they start asking me questions. Like that one crazy kid. Remember the track client that went to, and his mom?
yes,
And they started asking me questions about this stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I can tell you how it actually is. I can tell
don't
you how
know
it
what you're
actually is.
saying. They're words.
They're talking about how things should be.
They're just making word salad at me, and I'm like, yes, those are words. But
You're
I don't
saying
know
words.
what you're saying.
Well, it goes to the, hey, I have not agreed to be a citizen here, pay taxes here, as you always fight.
I haven't.
Just by being born here. That's their whole thing.
And I
is
get it,
I
and I-
haven't agreed to be a citizen. But guess what? If you don't do what the government tells you to do, they're going to lock you up. You're going to find out. So play along with the games because you have to.
It's interesting because I agree with them on that perspective. Like I didn't sign up for this, right? And I don't think anybody should be able to tell anybody else what to do.
But
'cause
you
we're
get
all,
you get the benefits of it though too.
Do we?
And that's what yeah,
we?
the roads. Do you drive on the roads?
Did they have those before we had a government? You mean 2000?
Not
There's
these-
wait,
not
there's
these
there's
paved
roads from
roads.
2000 years ago?
Oh gosh.
You mean our state flower, the Nevada traffic cone? Get out of here, dude. Also, while we're talking about roads, city planner, F1 and fixing every single major north-south road at the same time, pinching it down to one lane, right here, buddy.
Keep that in.
Yeah, keep that shit in. Fuck that guy. He's an idiot. He needs to have his job taken and his passport. Get out.
Welcome and
I'm
thank
pissed.
you.
Fuck this.
Thank you to listening to Tangled Rides episode 25. We'll be back here with you every
bullshit.
week.
I'm glad you guys think it's funny.
And we love you all. Have a good night.